Tonight, breaking news in the Caylee Anthony murder case. Hundreds of pages of documents released just hours ago. Take a look at this stack. We've been going through it all. A lot of stuff in here. Contained in it stunning revelations about Casey's family and those who once upon a time were her friends. It appears some of this new evidence could be very damaging to the mom accused of murder. Documents show that one-time boyfriend Anthony Lazzaro allowed cops to monitor his cell phone during their investigation into Casey. Plus, shocking text messages that Casey sent allegedly to cover up the reason her car smelled like a dead body. Will Casey's defense sink under the weight of the mountain of evidence now public for all to see, including prospective jurors? Let's face it, there's so much to talk about. Let's go straight to my expert panel. Joe Navarro, former FBI agent and profiler. Dr. Dale Archer, clinical psychiatrist. And criminal defense attorneys Bradford Cohen and Darren Kavanaugh. Darren, I'll start with you. What struck me is that cops report that in the entire month after little Caylee disappeared, Casey never made a single call to any Zenaida Gonzalez on her cell phone. Isn't that one single fact damning to her claims that Zanny the nanny took the baby and that Casey was just trying to get her back on her own?
Well, obviously, that fact, if it's true, certainly takes the wind out of those sails. But my big problem with all of this, Jane, is, as you alluded to, we are absolutely poisoning the jury pool. Where's a gag order in all of this? All of these mountains of discovery are being leaked or released to the press here. But let's remember that there's a big difference between the investigation work that law enforcement does and what is determined to be competent, admissible evidence in a court of law. And there's just no monitoring of that. And that's something that really causes me grave concern.
Well, Bradford Cohen, you're a criminal defense attorney. What are the rules? Take again a look at this. I mean, this is just one. We've gotten hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages. This is just one day's worth. Where does it end? Everything that the detectives get, they turn to prosecutors, then prosecutors give it to the defense, and then because of the liberal sunshine laws in Florida, we get it all? Or do they at some point say, you know, we're not going to use this, let's not pass it along?
The prosecution is definitely not going to say that because their attempt here is really to start trying it in the press, and that's what they're going for. These statements, a lot of these statements aren't even going to come in. A lot of these things that are prior bad acts, that she took money from her grandma, none of that is going to be relevant in a trial. So what they're doing is they really are poisoning the pool. So what you want to do is you try as a defense attorney to limit it somehow, to say, hey, let's put a gag order on some of this stuff because, like your other attorney just mentioned, a lot of this stuff is not going to be allowed in as evidence in a trial against her. A lot of it's going to be hearsay, and a lot of it's going to be prior bad acts that are just not going to be allowed in.
Well, this might be allowed in. A series of text messages were extracted by the Orange County Sheriff's Department to the phone of Amy Huizenga, one of Casey's friends. These were from Casey about 10 days after little Caylee disappeared, well before Cindy reported her missing. In one of them, Casey says, I need a freaking vacation. And then there's this. There was definitely part of a dead animal plastered to the frame of my car. Now, let me take this to Joe Navarro. One of the experienced investigators said that message was suspicious because it was a possible, quote, preemptive explanation to the foul smell of decomposing tissue. What do you make of it?
Sure. I mean, it sounds like alibi creation. Look, what we see here is an individual who's conniving, who can think things through, who plans, who is already thinking about what future events may bring her way. And you know what? Florida has this rule that this information is available to the public, and the public, whether they see it on the media or they go out and get it on their own, they have a right to see it. And we got to remember, you know, when our country was created, most towns, everybody knew what was going on. So this phenomena that the jury pool is being poisoned, I kind of question that because, you know, we've always had the ability for everybody in town to know the facts of the case.
Attorneys, defend yourselves. Darren.
Well, yeah, wait a second here. This is a case that has invited so much attention and so much national and international scrutiny that Casey Anthony has long since been convicted in the court of public opinion. And the idea that she would be texting this bit about running into a dead animal as a preemptive alibi, that may be one possible way to spin the evidence. The other is maybe she hit a dead animal and that's just factually accurate. Well, and when you're dealing with multiple inferences, remember the law generally is that we adopt the inference that points to innocence rather than the one that points to guilt.
And I want to bring Dr. Dale Archer in on this because here's a perfect example. Casey Anthony says, I need a freaking vacation. Well, you know what? Everybody says that almost every day in some way, shape, or form. That's no slam dunk.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for the legal standpoint here, but certainly from a psychological standpoint, I mean, all of this just paints a picture of someone who it seems like she doesn't even know what the truth is anymore. I mean, there have been so much that she said that has contradicted things, and that, you know, the possibility of this being preemptive, I agree with Joe on that one. Absolutely. It makes you wonder psychologically what is going on inside of her head, and it's not good.
Yeah, Charles Crittenden, a co-worker of Cindy Anthony's, told investigators about what Cindy said after she found Casey's car, but before Casey admitted just a little while after that Casey was in fact missing. Quote, she made the statement about the smell in the car. She said it smelled like a dead body, and we told her, this meaning the people at work, you've got to call the police. The detective asked, did she see anything in the car that maybe alarmed you guys? Answer, no. She didn't. She just said it smelled like a dead body.
Jane, what kind of animal do you hit that generates that kind of smell? Most of us have hit all sorts of things, and they fall off the car. They don't just loiter there long enough to
I've never hit an animal,
stink.
and I hope I never do.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, the thing is that it's not these statements taken in themselves that's the smoking gun. Obviously not. Yeah. But when you start compiling these things, that's when the defense starts to run into problems. Obviously, there's a bunch of different ways to look at these statements in themselves, that she hit an animal or that's what the smell was from, and there's inferences you can make either way. The issue becomes is then when you start piling things on top of each other, that's when you start running into trouble as the defense.
All right, Casey now might consider her one-time boyfriend, Anthony Lazzaro, to be a turncoat. Here's the evidence, a record of his agreement to let cops monitor his cell phone. This could turn out to be very destructive to Casey because cell phone tower pings put Casey in locations that refute what she says about her whereabouts on the day that Kaylee was murdered. Now, let's go to Joe Navarro on this one. Her dad, last time little Kaylee's seen is June 16th, the morning of June 16th. Right. The dad, George, says that Casey and little Kaylee go off to work because Casey's got a job at Universal Studios, which of course she didn't have. That was a total fiction. But the pings apparently show her remaining around the parents' home until 4 p.m.
Well, you know, definitely. They're going to look at her phone forensically, and they're going to say, what evidence is there? Who has she called? When did she call them? How frequently did she call them? She says that she was heavily involved. If you remember, she was heavily involved in pursuing her own daughter's disappearance. Where are those calls? Who did she call and so forth? And then if they're able to track somehow, and I'm not sure which service she has, where she was at, where she traveled to, what location she went to, this may begin to paint a whole different story. And, of course, that's part of what hopefully will be either in the record or they'll try to keep out of the record in court.
All right, and Darren Kavanoki, later that day, this is the last time that little Kaylee was ever seen that morning, Casey goes to Tony Lazzaro, the boyfriend's house. They go to Blockbuster. She stays at his apartment overnight. No Kaylee. The next day, according to the ping, she goes to remote areas near the airport and another remote area. Then, about 3 days after little Kaylee's disappearance, Casey drives around Blanchard Park. If you look at this, you could paint a picture of if she allegedly disposed of the child, killed the child, then she's driving around looking for a place to dispose of it.
Well, maybe, or there may be other innocent explanations about why she's visiting these remote areas. The idea that she's lied to her parents about the status of her employment, certainly doesn't reflect well on her credibility, but there may be other issues going on there that would lead to that kind of inter-family dishonesty, and that doesn't necessarily make her a murderer.
Well, everybody, stay right there. We're going to have more of this unbelievable evidence. We're pouring through it all and down the road in Satsuma, Florida.